They all from the same crew called Cold Crush Artists. Now those guys were very powerful in terms of their style. They had a lot of influence on people in their piece books over on the south side. And so this is one of the characters right here. This year that was it had to be like 85, 86. This is the kind of work that they were doing in their piece books back then. This is done by Zine. This is another one of his characters. Now let me explain this to you. Back in those days, people was drawing things that they could identify with, such as b-boy type style characters. Sometimes we drew stuff from comic books, or we drew characters that we might have made up, but basically it was stuff that we can identify with. But in this case, Zine was a different kind of artist. He wanted to have this stuff be original. To be original is one of the main things. As being a writer, you have to be original. That's the main thing about it. Okay, now, this is the brother of Zine. His name is Lur. Lur was a very, very powerful, what I would consider a master stylist. When I say a master stylist, this is a gentleman that took the time out to do his piece books and push them to the highest level. This guy didn't just have a bunch of times in his piece books. What this gentleman did when he sat down, took the time to develop the alphabet from A through Z. He didn't have a style that was like anybody else's. He created his own alphabet. But this is his own personal wild style. This piece actually says con art way before the clothing line con art came out. Wait, real quick.
Okay. Sorry.
Alright, now check this out. If you guys notice, in this piece book, he did both sides of the page. So when you open up the book, they covered up both pages. That just goes to show the dedication of what people spend time doing.
Sorry.
This is another piece. Now here's what's really, really important. In his piece books, this was a gentleman, once again, that focused on letter structure. He took the time out to really master how to take the alphabet and learn how to distort them and do metamorphosis through different letter connections. So that was one thing that inspired me when I seen his book. Let me tell you a real quick, fast story about this. Not about this piece, but about this artist. At the age of 14 years old, I was in junior high school. I was in the 7th or 8th grade. I had a battle with 3 writers. I showed them my piece book, and I won the battle. And this is what they told me. They said, we got somebody that's going to battle you. Keep in mind, I'm 14 years old. And they was like, we got somebody that's going to come and beat you in the battle. This guy was already a grown man back then. So he came up there to the school with his piece book. He handed me his book. He said, who's creator? I said, that's me. He said, here's my book. Then I gave him my book, right? So I'm looking at his pages too, and I open it up. He had style that's a little bit more better than this back then. So when I looked at it, and he looked at my book, this guy gave me credit at the age of 14 years old for doing what I was doing back then. So what I'm saying is that after I seen this guy's work, it pushed me to another level. Okay, now, this is what I want to say. Back in the late 70s, early mid-70s in New York City, we got to show respect to New York City because that's the mecca where graffiti art evolved from. But here's the deal, this art form has been around for years through a lot of our cultural backgrounds of our ancestors, so this is not nothing new, it's just in a different formation at this point in time. But these people right here, this guy named Sweet Dude, Fly Philly, and D163, those are people that were doing graffiti way back in New York back then. A lot of us probably never heard of those people, or maybe you might not never heard of them again, but at this point now you get a chance to see what some of the writers used to look like back then. These are some more writers from New York back in the mid-70s, late 70s. Okay, now this is a very important writer in New York City. His name is Scheme from New York. He used to write with Dez and a lot of other writers back then. Now Scheme, writers back then, what they used to do was, they didn't just, they did their names and they did a lot of other things, but sometimes they put a message with their pieces. So he put, stop, look, and listen. We are the sons of the ghetto and we will survive. I'm going to repeat that last part. We are the sons of the ghetto and we will survive. He was making a powerful statement, letting people know we come from the ghetto, but at the same time, coming out of an area in a time and period where things were crucial, people was creating beautiful artwork back then. This is another piece done by Scheme. This character right here was real powerful in terms of influencing a lot of people with style, doing characters back in 1983, 84. Now, here's the deal about that. In the process of doing this cartoon, or doing this character right here, I don't know if that's a self-portrait of him, but here's the deal. I want you to look at the can control technique, the way he used the different shades of brown. I don't know if he was Islamic, but he put a kufi on the character up there. That just goes to show how people tied in their cultural background into what they was doing also as well, because a lot of people, they right now we see a bunch of skulls and all this demonic stuff, so that just goes to show you what people are linked with. And so when this guy right here did this, he was tying into his cultural heritage and background. This is a writing session where writers get together and they're sitting in the room drawing and looking at photo albums. This is what it used to be like in the early 80s. This is like a current up-to-date picture where my partner named Ink One, he's the gentleman in the back that's doing the big huge face of the pharaoh in the back. But now, this was the show called the Black Letter Show. This is when, at one point, we didn't really have any shows going on in dedication to the black graffiti writer. Now here's what I want to say. This art form is universal. It has no boundaries of color because everybody's capable of doing this art form. But, once again, the reason why we're doing it because there's not that many black graffiti writers left, and we wanted to just pay respects and show, our contribution to the scene. Clever, he was a writer from the South Side, he was a writer of color. Now Clever, he was what we call the king even back in 1985-86. He was ahead of his time and style. This is one of the pieces he did that inspired a lot of people.
Rest in peace, bro.
Oh yeah, rest in peace, because he passed away back in 87. This piece was done in 1985 on Western and Imperial. This piece was very powerful as this as well. I remember as a kid, when I used to drive out there with my mother in the car, I would always look through the window and be inspired by that piece. That's when the video game Donkey Kong first came out. Yeah. And that was like real, cool to look at back then. So imagine this, he didn't get no permission to paint that piece. This is what graffiti writers were doing back in those days, late at night. They had their team of writers, they would go out and do these pieces right here.
Nintendo.
Okay, this writer, his name is Dello and Riot. They did this piece at the Jefferson Yard back in 1985-86. If you go back. If you look at that piece, for those of you who are familiar with the book Spray Can Art, there's a little short black guy leaning up against the wall next to the character. He's the one who created those characters, and the other guy named Riot did the piece. Okay, we're going back to Scheme in New York. Those characters from the side profile played a very important role on how we developed our characters worldwide. Because not only did Scheme I don't say he created them, but he was one of the people at that early point in time in the graffiti art movement. He took it and really did something real nice with the style of how he created them. Okay, this is one of the guys right here that helped create the show right here, which is Mark 7 at KMC. This was done on the Crenshaw Wall over on Crenshaw Boulevard back in 1987. This was a point in time in LA where a lot of people started to come out and see what everybody was doing. This is the golden days of the graffiti art movement back in those days. Oh, real quick. I want you to take notice. The Suzuki Jeep in the area, sometimes people had Nissan trucks back then, Suzuki Jeep, Volkswagens. Like what happened was back then, a lot of people, they could relate to their environment. So